The sleek, silver transport vessel sliced through the atmosphere of Korath-7, a planet notorious for its lethal environment and ferocious wildlife. Inside, the elite Oxylithan Marines prepared for their mission, each Marine a product of rigorous training and genetic enhancements. Their reputation as the universe's fiercest warriors preceded them, and they reveled in the thrill of battle. As the planet's surface loomed closer, the mood was charged with adrenaline and bravado. Commander Rax, a towering figure with luminescent green skin and cybernetic enhancements, addressed his squad. Remember, this is not just another routine mission. Korath-7 is known as a death world for a reason. Stay alert and follow my lead. His voice resonated with authority, instantly commanding respect. The Marines nodded, their eyes glinting with anticipation. Sergeant Cree, the unit's tech specialist with iridescent scales that shimmered in the cabin light, leaned back, a smirk on his face. Death world. Sounds like a challenge. I hope we find something that can actually put us on our toes. The other Marines laughed, their confidence palpable. Their banter filled the cabin, a testament to their camaraderie and shared experiences. As they broke through the cloud cover, the harsh landscape of Korath-7 unfolded beneath them, a chaotic mix of jagged mountains, dense jungles, and vast swathes of crimson sand. But it wasn't just the terrain that made this planet deadly. It was the creatures that inhabited it. Legends spoke of beasts that could tear a fully armored Marine apart with ease. The thrill of potential danger only heightened their excitement. Suddenly, the transport's alarm blared, cutting through their jovial atmosphere like a knife. A holographic display flickered to life, revealing the distorted signal pulsing on their scanners. Rax's brow furrowed as he examined the readings. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, his earlier confidence wavering slightly. Cree leaned over the control panel, his fingers dancing across the touchscreen. "It's coming from a nearby canyon. The signal is erratic, but it seems to be broadcasting a distress call, or perhaps a challenge." His eyes widened, a spark of curiosity igniting within him. Whatever it is, it might be worth checking out. Rax weighed the options. We can't ignore a distress signal on a planet like this. It could be a trap, but it could also lead us to something valuable. He paused, then made a decisive nod. "We'll check it out. Prepare for a drop." As the Marines braced themselves, the transport veered sharply towards the canyon. The landscape grew closer, and the excitement in the cabin transformed into focused determination. Rax's voice rang out over the din. "Weapons ready. We don't know what we're walking into." The transport's landing gear thudded against the ground, sending a cloud of dust swirling into the air. The Marines disembarked with precision, their combat suits glinting in the harsh sunlight. They fanned out, weapons raised, scanning their surroundings. The canyon loomed ahead, a gaping maw inviting them into its depths. "Stay sharp," Rax ordered, leading the way into the shadowy crevice. As they descended, the echo of their footsteps merged with the distant growls of unseen creatures. With each step, tension thickened in the air. They were no longer the apex predators. On Korath-7, the balance of power could shift in an instant. In the heart of the canyon, they stumbled upon the source of the signal, a lone figure standing defiantly against a horde of snarling beasts. The Marines froze, eyes widening in disbelief. What they saw defied their expectations. A human, a solitary Deathworlder, armed with nothing but sheer grit, and a weapon cobbled together from the remnants of his fallen foes. "Look at that," Cree whispered, captivated by the scene unfolding before them. "Is he crazy or brave?" Rax's heart raced as he realized they were about to witness something extraordinary. The human was locked in a life-or-death struggle, embodying a spirit that the Marines had only ever heard about in stories, a spirit that might very well challenge everything they thought they knew about humanity. The scene before the Marines was chaos incarnate. The human, a rugged figure clad in tattered clothing, stood resolute against a swarm of snarling beasts. With wild eyes and a fierce determination, he wielded a makeshift weapon, A crude spear crafted from a sharpened branch, its tip stained with the remnants of his past skirmishes. The creatures surrounding him were unlike anything the Marines had encountered. Massive, sinewy beasts with elongated limbs, razor-sharp claws, and jaws capable of crushing bone. By the stars, look at him go! Kree gasped, unable to tear his gaze away from the battle. The Marines watched in stunned silence as the human darted between the beasts, his movements a blur of agility and ferocity. With each thrust of his spear, he downed one of the monstrous attackers, the blood spraying across the ground like a grim harvest. The Hylothians exchanged glances, incredulity etched across their faces. Is he even afraid? Rax muttered, the awe creeping into his voice. The human fought with an almost primal instinct, his every action fueled by sheer willpower. Rax felt a flicker of something he hadn't expected: respect. This was no ordinary fighter. This was a warrior forged in the fires of a brutal existence. But the tide of battle shifted when one of the beasts lunged, its powerful jaws snapping inches from the human's face. In a moment of raw desperation, the human sidestepped, but not without consequence. The creature's claws caught him, tearing through flesh and sinew, and he staggered back, losing his right arm at the shoulder in a horrifying display. Blood poured from the wound, staining the dirt beneath him. "No!" Kree shouted, horrified. The other Marines braced for the human's collapse, expecting him to succumb to the pain. But instead, the Deathworlder roared, a guttural sound that echoed through the canyon, a battle cry that transcended pain. He turned the spear around, using his remaining strength to drive it into the creature's skull as it lunged again, killing it instantly. "Did you see that?" Rax exclaimed, his heart racing. He's still fighting. The human's defiance ignited a fire within the Marines. They had come to witness a challenge, but they were now watching a spectacle of raw survival instinct. The Deathworlder wasn't merely fighting for his life. He was fighting for honor, for every moment that had led him to this brutal confrontation. As the human pivoted, bloodied and battered, he glanced towards the Marines, his gaze fierce and unyielding. For a heartbeat, time froze. The distance between them shrank, and in that moment, the Marines understood. This man was not just a creature of their legends. He was one of them, a warrior. Then, a new wave of beasts charged from the shadows, and the Deathworlder was immediately thrust back into battle. He didn't falter. Instead, he threw himself into the fray with reckless abandon. Each movement was a dance of death, a primal symphony of survival. The Marines found themselves holding their breath, witnessing a level of ferocity that stirred something deep within them. "Commander, we can't just stand here," Kree shouted, gripping his pulse rifle tightly. The Marines hesitated, torn between their instinct to intervene and their fascination with the human's relentless spirit. Rax could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had to act, and he had to do it now. "On my mark." Rax finally barked, his mind made up. The Marines raised their weapons, targeting the nearest creatures as they lunged at the human. They wouldn't let this warrior fall without a fight. The thrill of battle surged through them, igniting a connection that transcended their differences. "Fire!" Rax commanded, and the sound of blaster fire erupted, mingling with the roars of the beasts and the shouts of the human. Together, they charged into the fray. Each shot fired not just in defense of their own lives, but in solidarity with a fellow warrior who refused to back down. The canyon echoed with the sounds of battle, an explosive testament to the indomitable spirit of life on Korath 7. The canyon erupted into a cacophony of noise as the Marines opened fire, their blasters cutting through the chaos like a hot knife through butter. Bright bolts of energy struck the charging beasts, causing them to shriek in agony and collapse in grotesque heaps. The Deathworlder, spurred on by the unexpected reinforcements, rallied with renewed vigor. He twisted and turned, leveraging his weight to swing his makeshift spear with deadly precision, targeting the creatures that slipped past the Marine's fire. Rax felt the adrenaline coursing through him as he fought alongside the human. With each fallen beast, he felt a strange kinship growing, a bond forged in the heat of battle. The humans' relentless drive to survive ignited a fire in the Marines, pushing them to fight harder, to protect their newfound ally. "Watch your six," Kree yelled, barely avoiding the talons of a beast that lunged at him. He ducked, rolling to the side, and firing a burst of blaster rounds that shattered the creature's skull. Just as he regained his footing, he spotted the human engaging yet another monster, thrusting his spear into its chest with a primal roar. The sound resonated with the Marines, echoing their own battle cries. But the tide of the battle was shifting again. As more predators emerged from the shadows, their sheer numbers began to overwhelm the humans. Rax's heart raced. He could see the exhaustion etched into the Deathworlder's face. Blood streamed from his shoulder where his arm had once been. The human was pushing himself to the limit, and Rax knew they needed to end this before they lost him. "Focus fire on the biggest one," Rax barked, pointing at a hulking beast that seemed to lead the charge. Its jagged teeth glistened with the blood of its fallen kin, and it let out a roar that sent shivers down the spines of all present. "Take it down." The Marines coordinated their efforts, firing in unison. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and blood as energy bolts struck the creature. It howled in pain but kept advancing, its eyes locked onto the human, now kneeling in a moment of weariness. "Get up," Rax shouted, his voice rising above the din of battle. "We're not done yet." Summoning the last vestiges of his strength, the Deathworlder pushed himself to his feet, his determination unyielding. With a primal snarl, he charged the beast, spear raised high. Rax couldn't believe the audacity of this human, who had lost so much yet refused to back down. As the creature lunged, the Deathworlder sidestepped with incredible agility, a maneuver that spoke of sheer instinct and experience. With a swift, brutal thrust, he buried his spear deep into the beast's neck, cutting off its roar mid-sound. The creature faltered, staggering before collapsing to the ground with a heavy thud, shaking the earth beneath them. Cheers erupted from the Marines, their spirits lifted by the human's audacity. "He did it," Kree exclaimed, awe mingling with relief. That was incredible. But the victory was short-lived. The canyon was still teeming with predators, and the remaining beasts were growing desperate, sensing the tides turning against them. They began to coordinate their attacks, surrounding the remaining fighters with a newfound ferocity. "Fall back," Rax commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to regroup." But as the Marines began to retreat, the Deathworlder stood firm, his eyes blazing with defiance. "No," he shouted, his voice carrying an unexpected authority. "We can't let them take us down. Not now." Rax was taken aback by the human's conviction. In that moment, he understood something profound. This man was not just a fighter. He was a symbol of resilience against overwhelming odds. The Marines rallied around him, their spirits ignited by his unyielding will. "Then let's show them what we're made of," Rax roared, his pulse rifle steady in hand. "On three, we charge." The Marines and the Deathworlder stood together, their collective resolve coalescing into a force that could not be easily extinguished. In a single powerful voice, they shouted in unison, and with that battle cry, they surged forward, ready to face the remaining horde together. With a primal roar echoing through the canyon, the Marines charged forward, flanked by the indomitable spirit of the Deathworlder. The ground shook beneath their feet as they collided with the remaining beasts, a whirlwind of chaos and carnage enveloping them. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, blood, and the metallic tang of energy blasts. Together, they were an unstoppable force, a whirlwind of fury driven by the shared goal of survival. Rax led the charge, his pulse rifle unleashing a steady stream of blue bolts that illuminated the shadows of the canyon. He felt the surge of adrenaline pushing him beyond his limits. To his left, Kree moved fluidly, his iridescent scales glinting in the dim light as he dodged a beast's claws and delivered a devastating kick that sent the creature sprawling. The Deathworlder, spear clutched tightly in his remaining hand, fought alongside them with a ferocity that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Rax watched as he thrust his weapon into the side of a charging beast, pivoting to use the creature's momentum against it. The human's instincts were sharp, a testament to a lifetime of surviving in a world where death lurked around every corner. "Keep pushing. Don't give them an inch," Rax shouted, his voice ringing clear over the cacophony of battle. The Marines rallied around him, emboldened by the human's tenacity and unwillingness to yield. With each beast they felled, the canyon began to echo with the sounds of their victory, the tide of the battle shifting in their favor. But as they pressed forward, Rax noticed a glimmer of desperation in the eyes of the remaining creatures. They were not mere mindless beasts. They were predators, instinctively aware that their survival was at stake. The largest among them, a monstrous figure covered in jagged scales and teeth like knives, roared in fury, rallying the remaining beasts for a final desperate stand. "Focus fire," Rax yelled, pointing his weapon at the colossal creature. "We take down the leader." The Marines aimed their rifles, a synchronized action that spoke of their training and unity. Just as they prepared to unleash a volley of energy, the Deathworlder surged ahead, positioning himself between the Marines and the monstrous beast. "No, let me handle this," he shouted, defiance written across his bloodied face. "Are you insane?" Kree shouted, incredulous. "You can't take it on alone." "I'm not alone," the human roared, conviction radiating from him. He steadied his grip on the spear, muscles taut with exertion and determination. "We fought together, and we'll win together. Trust me." In that moment, Rax realized the depth of the bond that had formed in such a short time. The Deathworlder was not just an ally. He had become a part of their squad. There was an unspoken understanding that they would fight together, regardless of the odds. "Let's do this," Rax shouted, lowering his rifle. The Marines followed suit, knowing they could trust their ally. The Deathworlder advanced, spear poised, eyes locked on the beast. The colossal creature charged, its jaws wide open, ready to crush the defiant human. The Deathworlder waited until the last moment, channeling every ounce of strength and determination. At the last second, he dodged to the side, thrusting his spear upward into the creature's open maw. The beast howled in agony as the spear pierced deep, and the human used the creature's momentum against it, forcing the spear further until it erupted from the back of its skull. The colossal creature collapsed, lifeless, sending shockwaves through the ground as it fell. The remaining predators, witnessing the fall of their leader, hesitated, confusion overtaking their primal instincts. The Marines seized the moment, launching a final assault that pushed the remaining beasts into retreat. Victory surged through the ranks as they felled the last few creatures, their roars turning to whimpers as they fled back into the shadows. As the dust settled and silence enveloped the canyon, Rax turned to the Deathworlder, who stood panting, bloodied but unbroken. "You did it," Rax said, awe creeping into his voice. "You saved us." The human, breathless and weary, managed a lopsided grin. "We saved each other." In that moment, amidst the remnants of battle, the bonds forged through shared struggle and sacrifice solidified. They were no longer just a band of elite Marines and a lone human. They were a unified force, warriors bound by respect and honor. The canyon, once a place of chaos, now echoed with their triumph, heralding the dawn of a new alliance that would change their destinies forever. As the dust settled, the Marines regrouped, their hearts still pounding from the adrenaline-fueled battle. They surveyed the remnants of the chaos. The carcasses of the fallen beasts lay scattered around them, each a testament to their hard-won victory. The Deathworlder, panting heavily, leaned against a jagged rock for support, his bloodied figure illuminated by the dim light filtering through the canyon. Despite his grievous injuries, he exuded an aura of triumph, a raw magnetism that drew the Marines to him. Rax approached first, extending a hand. "You fought like a true warrior. We wouldn't have made it without you." The human took Rax's hand, shaking it firmly. "You all fought just as hard. I'm not used to working with a team, but I've never felt so alive." A grin broke across his dirt-streaked face, momentarily lighting up his features, and Rax felt a sense of camaraderie blossom between them. Kree, who was checking his gear nearby, chimed in. "You took down that giant like it was nothing. How did you learn to fight like that?" The Deathworlder chuckled, a rough sound filled with both pride and pain. "You have to survive in my world, or you don't last long. Every fight teaches you something. Every injury is a lesson learned." He flexed his remaining arm, the muscles taut with exertion. "Out there, it's either you or them. You adapt or die." Rax felt the weight of the human's words, a stark reminder of the realities they had all faced, albeit in different ways. The Uxai-Luthan Marines were no strangers to violence, but their battles were often against alien forces, devoid of the visceral brutality that came with a world like Korath 7. The humans' insights opened a door to a perspective they had not fully understood until now. Kree took a step closer, curiosity piqued. "What's it like? Your world, I mean. What do you face every day?" The Deathworlder's expression shifted, a shadow passing over his features. "It's a constant struggle. Every day is a fight for survival. The wildlife is relentless, and the terrain is unforgiving. You learn to be resourceful, to find strength where you thought there was none." He paused, his gaze drifting toward the canyon walls, as if recalling painful memories. "But it's not just about fighting. It's about the people you fight for. I lost a lot, and every battle reminds me of what I'm fighting to protect." The Marines listened intently, a profound silence enveloping them as they absorbed his words. They had always viewed their missions as a means to protect their own species, but here was a human who fought not just for himself, but for the memory of those he had lost. Rax's respect for the human deepened, realizing that their struggles, while different in nature, were fueled by similar motivations. "Is that why you kept fighting?" Rax asked, intrigued. "Even after losing your arm?" The Deathworlder straightened, his gaze fierce and unwavering. "Exactly. I knew I couldn't give up. I had to show them that I wouldn't let them win, that I was still standing, no matter what they threw at me." Kree nodded in understanding, his earlier bravado tempered by the gravity of the human's words. "You're stronger than you realize. Strength isn't just physical. It's also about your will to keep going when things get tough." Rax couldn't help but smile at that. The Deathworlder had not only proven his physical strength, but had also inspired a newfound resolve in the Marines. They had come to Korath 7 as conquerors, expecting to dominate whatever threats they faced. But now, they found themselves learning from a human warrior who embodied resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. "Let's patch you up," Kree said, breaking the heavy moment as he pulled out a medical kit from his gear. "You can't keep fighting with one arm, no matter how tough you are." The human chuckled again, a low, warm sound. "Yeah, I guess that's fair. I'd like to keep going, you know." As Kree and the others set to work, Rax felt a shift within the group. They were no longer just Marines on a mission. They were a team, bound together by respect and the shared weight of their experiences. In that canyon, forged by blood and grit, they had found not just an ally but a brother, a warrior who had taught them that true strength comes from within, and that together they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. With the adrenaline of battle still coursing through their veins, the Marines worked efficiently to treat the Deathworlder's wounds. Kree had taken the lead, carefully cleaning the jagged stump of the human's severed arm, while Rax and the others scouted the perimeter for any lingering threats. The canyon, once a battlefield, was now a sanctuary for their newfound alliance, but the remnants of danger lingered in the air. "Hold still," Kree instructed, his tone focused and professional. The human winced as Kree applied a biogel to the wound, sealing it and preventing further bleeding. "You've got some impressive scars, but this one takes the cake. I've had my fair share of close calls, the Deathworlder replied, his voice steady despite the pain. I'll wear this one with pride, like a badge of honor. The Marines exchanged glances, a newfound respect resonating among them. Here was a being who had faced the brutal realities of his world head-on, and rather than succumbing to despair, he had emerged stronger. As Kree finished dressing the wound, Rax couldn't help but feel a sense of kinship developing. A bond forged not just in combat, but in the shared understanding of struggle and survival. Once the immediate medical needs were addressed, the group settled into a more relaxed posture, although tension still lurked beneath the surface. They gathered around a small fire that Rax had started using some dry brush, the flickering flames casting dancing shadows against the canyon walls. "Tell us more about your world," Rax said, his curiosity piqued. "What's it like to live on a death world?" The Deathworlder leaned back, contemplating the question. "It's both beautiful and terrifying. The landscape is harsh. Mountains, dense forests, deserts that seem to stretch on forever. Every day, you learn to respect the environment because it can kill you just as easily as the predators lurking within it. But amidst the chaos, there's beauty too. Wildflowers that bloom in the crevices of rocks, sunsets that set the sky ablaze with color. You just have to know where to look. Sounds like paradise and hell all rolled into one," Kree mused, his eyes gleaming with intrigue. "Do you have a community, people to share those sunsets with?" The human's expression darkened, a shadow crossing his features. "I did, but not anymore. I lost my family, my friends, all to the same struggle that I now face. I keep fighting in their memory." The weight of his words hung in the air, each Marine absorbing the gravity of his loss. It resonated with their own experiences, the sacrifices they had made for the sake of their own worlds and comrades. Rax cleared his throat, wanting to shift the mood. "But you're still here, and you fought like a titan today. We're lucky to have you." "Luck has little to do with it," the Deathworlder replied, a flicker of humor returning to his voice. "It's the company you keep that makes a difference." With the fire crackling and the stars beginning to twinkle above, they found a sense of comfort in one another. They exchanged stories of their past battles, their hopes for the future, and the moments that had defined them. Each tale drew them closer, building a tapestry of shared experiences that transcended their differences. As the night wore on, Rax couldn't shake the feeling that this alliance was more than just a strategic partnership. They were creating something lasting, bonds of friendship forged in fire and battle. The Deathworlder was not just a survivor of his own world, but a kindred spirit, a warrior whose tenacity inspired them all. Eventually, as the fire began to die down, Kree glanced around the group. "We should probably get some rest. We've had a long day, and I'm sure more challenges await us in the morning." "Agreed," Rax said, stifling a yawn. "We'll need our strength." As they settled down for the night, the Deathworlder lay awake for a while longer, listening to the sounds of the Marines settling in. He could hear their breaths slowing, the shared warmth of the fire creating a comforting atmosphere. In that moment, he felt a flicker of hope, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Perhaps he wasn't just a lone warrior in a harsh world anymore. Perhaps together with these Marines, he could forge a new destiny, one built on resilience, camaraderie, and the promise of a brighter future. Morning broke over the canyon with a soft glow, the sun's rays creeping slowly across the rocky terrain. The Deathworlder awoke to the sound of rustling, the Marines already up and preparing for the day ahead. As he sat up, the remnants of the previous day's battles flickered through his mind, scenes of chaos, pain, and ultimately triumph. "Morning, sleepyhead," Kree called out, his tone light and teasing. He was cooking some ration packs over the embers of the dying fire, the aroma wafting through the air, a stark contrast to the bitter sense of battle that still clung to their clothes. "Is that what passes for breakfast around here?" The Deathworlder replied, forcing a smile despite the ache in his shoulder. "Hey, it's not gourmet, but it'll keep you going." Cree chuckled, flipping the ration packs with a flick of his wrist. Better than eating dirt, right? As the Marines gathered around, sharing a light-hearted banter that dispelled the remnants of tension from the previous day, the Deathworlder felt a swell of gratitude for this newfound camaraderie. They were warriors, yes, but they were also friends, united by their shared experiences and the bonds they had forged in battle. Rax approached, a cup of steaming liquid in hand. "Coffee," he said, offering it to the human. "It's not exactly like what you're used to, but it'll wake you up." The Deathworlder accepted it, taking a cautious sip. The warmth spread through him, and he found himself appreciating the gesture. "Thanks," he said, savoring the taste. "I could get used to this." "Enjoy it while you can," Cree joked, grinning. "You'll have to get your own coffee once we hit the front lines again." "Speaking of which," Rax said, his tone shifting, "what's the plan now? We need to find out what else lurks in this canyon." As they discussed their next steps, a sense of urgency began to settle over the group. The remnants of the battle had made it clear that they were not alone, and the Marines couldn't afford to underestimate their enemies. "Reconnaissance," Cree suggested. "We'll split into teams, gather intel, and report back. We need to know what we're dealing with if we want to continue this mission." The Deathworlder nodded in agreement. "I can help with that. I know these kinds of environments well. I can scout ahead and flag any potential threats." Rax regarded him, impressed. "That's risky, but I trust you. Just make sure to signal us if you encounter anything. We don't want to lose you out there." With a plan set in motion, the group began to gather their gear, the atmosphere buzzing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The Deathworlder felt a thrill coursing through him, the promise of adventure and danger tingling at the edges of his consciousness. This was what he had craved: action, purpose, a chance to fight alongside those who understood the weight of survival. As they prepared to head out, Rax pulled the Deathworlder aside. "You know, there's something different about you. You've faced unimaginable challenges, and yet you stand with us, ready to fight. That takes guts." The human shrugged, a hint of humility crossing his features. "We all have our battles to face. Mine just happened to be a bit more intense." Rax smiled, a genuine connection forming between them. "Well, just know that you're not alone anymore. We'll face this together." With that, the Marines moved out, splitting into teams as they ventured deeper into the canyon. The Deathworlder led the way, his senses heightened, every nerve in his body tuned to the environment around him. He navigated the rocky terrain with ease, using the skills he had honed over years of survival. As they trekked further, the sunlight filtering through the canyon walls began to dim, shadows stretching across the rocky ground. The atmosphere shifted, a tension lingering in the air, and the Deathworlder sensed that they were drawing closer to something dangerous. Suddenly, the hairs on the back of his neck prickled, instinct screaming at him that they were being watched. He raised a hand to signal the Marines to halt, holding his breath as he scanned the area. A flicker of movement caught his eye. Something large, lurking in the shadows, and it was closing in fast. "Get ready," he shouted, adrenaline surging through him as he prepared for whatever danger lay ahead. The Marines froze at the Deathworlder's command, a palpable tension filling the air as they instinctively fell into defensive stances. Rax raised his pulse rifle, eyes scanning the shadowy crevices of the canyon for any sign of movement. Cree, to his left, unsheathed a combat knife, the blade glinting ominously in the dim light. "What do you see?" Rax asked, heaping his voice low, the urgency palpable. "Something's watching us," the Deathworlder replied, his voice steady but urgent. "It's big, and it's close." The Marines tightened their grips on their weapons, hearts pounding in synchrony. Just as they prepared to advance, the shadow exploded into motion, revealing a massive, scaled creature, larger than any of the beasts they had fought before. It surged forward with terrifying speed, eyes glinting with hunger and malice. "Fall back," Rax shouted, instincts kicking in. The Marines formed a tight circle around the Deathworlder, firing in unison as the creature charged. Blue energy blasts lit up the canyon, striking the beast, but only causing it to stagger briefly. The Deathworlder stood resolute, spear clutched tightly in his hand. It's strong, but we can bring it down together. Target its legs. Following the human's lead, the Marines redirected their fire, aiming for the creature's limbs. The beast howled in rage, claws swiping through the air with a ferocity that sent shivers down their spines. Rax felt a surge of adrenaline as they coordinated their attack, and he marveled at how seamlessly the Deathworlder had integrated into their team. The creature recoiled, wounded but not defeated, and it changed tactics, lashing out with its tail like a whip. It struck Kree, sending him crashing against the canyon wall with a sickening thud. Kree! Rax shouted, panic rushing through him as he saw his comrade crumple to the ground. Get him back! The Deathworlder yelled, charging forward, determination etched into his features. Without hesitation, he threw himself at the creature, spear poised for the kill. Rax's heart raced as he watched the human close the distance. No, he shouted, but it was too late. The Deathworlder was already in motion, vaulting over the creature's head. With a primal roar, he drove the spear deep into the beast's back, just between the shoulder blades. The creature howled in pain, arching its back as the Deathworlder drove the spear deeper, using every ounce of strength he had left. Rax quickly took advantage of the distraction, calling out to the other Marines. Now, focus fire. As energy blasts rained down upon the creature, it staggered, caught between the relentless assault of the Marines and the fierce determination of the human warrior. With a final, anguished roar, the beast collapsed, sending tremors through the canyon floor. Rax rushed forward, kneeling beside Kree, who was groaning but conscious. You okay? He asked, scanning for injuries. I'll live, Kree replied, pain etched across his face. Just a bruise or two. He looked past Rax, his eyes wide. But what about him? The Deathworlder stood victorious, chest heaving, bloody but unbowed, his spear buried deep within the creature's carcass. A rush of pride surged through Rax as he realized that this human, who had once been a stranger, had now become an irreplaceable ally. The Marines gathered around him, awe replacing the earlier panic. You did it, Kree exclaimed, pushing himself up, wincing at the movement but determined to stand. You took it down. The Deathworlder smiled, a weary but triumphant expression on his face. We did it, together. Rax felt a warmth swell in his chest, a feeling of belonging he hadn't anticipated. You've shown us what it means to fight for each other. We're stronger with you on our side. As they caught their breath, the canyon that had once felt so oppressive now seemed filled with promise. They had faced death and emerged victorious, their bonds strengthened through struggle and sacrifice. Let's get back to the others, Rax said, glancing at Kree and the Deathworlder. We still have a mission to finish, and I have a feeling this isn't the end of our challenges. Together, they moved forward, a united front of warriors, Marines and Deathworlder alike, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. In the heart of the canyon, they had forged not just an alliance but a brotherhood, one that would stand strong against the shadows of the universe, facing whatever came next with courage and determination.